Concerns about this war escalating into a broader regional or global conflict have spiked in the last couple of weeks, and the Houthis dropped a music video. We're gonna watch that. What's going on, everyone? Let's take a look at some updates as it relates to the ongoing war between Israel and Hamas. I'm recording this at 8:30 a.m. Central on Friday, December 8th, 2023. Overnight, Israel released the names and pictures of 4 of their soldiers that they say were killed in the line of duty during combat operations in and around Gaza. The Gaza Health Ministry updated their information, saying that since October 7th, 17,177 Palestinians have been killed and at least 46,000 wounded. A couple notes with that information. The Gaza Health Ministry, having operated in Gaza previously and currently, is at the very least overseen by Hamas. And those numbers, the 17,000 and 46,000, do include Hamas militants killed by Israeli forces, but they're not broken out separately as Al Jazeera and the Gaza Health Ministry reports that information. Additionally, overnight, Israel says they were able to eliminate Abd al-Aziz Rantisi, a senior member of Hamas military intelligence who took part in the planning of the October 7th massacre. And in that same strike, Israel says that Ahmed Ayush was also eliminated, who is a member of the Hamas Karara battalion. Then shifting over to a map, which has not been updated in the last 24 hours, but you can see that Israel is continuing their ground operations in the north around Gaza City and to the south around Khan Yunis. In a statement put out by the IDF, they said that their forces destroyed buildings, including terrorist infrastructures that were used for Hamas military activities at Al-Azhar University in the Ramal neighborhood of the Gaza Strip. Adding that enemy infrastructures were located in the university complex, among them an underground route that leaves the university yard and continues to a school about a kilometer from it. In addition, many weapons of explosive charges, rocket parts, launchers, explosive activation systems, and a variety of technological means were transferred to an intelligence investigation. The findings on the ground show that the terrorist organization Hamas used the university building for the purpose of fighting against our forces, against the Israeli forces. They say, in addition, IDF reserve fighters from the 14th Brigade raided the observation post of the Hamas terrorist organization in the area of the Shati Hospital. In the post, about 200 radios and dozens of cameras were found. In the post, a combat shaft tunnel system, cartridges, grenades, a sniper position, and military equipment and firearms were also found. Then shifting over to Hamas, they put out a statement earlier today saying that some of their fighters thwarted an Israeli attempt to reach some of the prisoners currently being held by Hamas. They say that this force was identified advancing towards the Hamas position, led to small arms fire and engagement with a couple of the Israeli soldiers wounded, possibly even killed, at which point Israeli aircraft came in and struck the location. They say that that strike, or the clash and then the subsequent strike, led to the death of one of the captured Israeli soldiers that was being held in Hamas captivity. We've had a few of these statements put out by Hamas over the past few months where they say Israeli actions have led to the death of someone in their captivity. We'll have to wait for more confirmation on that front. So yesterday, videos and pictures came out showing at least dozens of Palestinian men that had been taken into Israeli custody, I believe in Khan Yunis, in the southern portion of the Gaza Strip. I'm not going to show those pictures and videos here. I don't like to show when someone is in a compromised state, be that POWs, hostages, detainees, in any situation. These pictures are out there. If you want to find them, I just don't feel comfortable blasting those out over the internet. So a couple thoughts here. I did see some hot takes ranging the gamut here. On the one hand, people saying that these were entirely Hamas fighters that had crawled out of the tunnels and were surrendering to IDF forces. On the other extreme, I saw some folks saying that these men were being lined up and shot and being executed. I've not seen any evidence to support either one of those extremes at this point. So let's talk a little bit about what happens in a situation like this. So in a perfect world, you would have a suspected militant in a combat zone. You'd be able to scan biometrics, ask a couple questions, and be able to definitively know this person is a militant or just an innocent civilian, and you can just move on to the next one. It's done. That's not how war works. That's definitely not how an unconventional conflict like is happening in Gaza is going to work. So the challenge that Israel is going to face here is that they have military-age males in their custody. They come across them, and they might be able to grab a handful of those and definitively prove through a variety of means that those are Hamas militants, senior members of Hamas, or even just low-level fighters. They might be able to, for a handful, dial that in for sure, and those then go into custody. But for the rest of them, it's going to be very, very hard in a situation like this, where there's an insurgency, a guerrilla group, a terrorist network operating, for Israel to definitively prove in a short period of time that these men had nothing to do with Hamas. So, of course, the concern there from Israel's point of view is if you think someone is a civilian and you release them back out into the population, but they're actually a militant, they're going to turn around and attack your forces right away, right? You don't want to put more militants back out into the battlefield. This is something we dealt with a lot in Iraq and Afghanistan. I'm not going to say that we got it right, probably far from it. We detained a lot of people, the United States, that at most had very loose association with any sort of militant group in either one of those countries. So what I would expect here is that the majority of the men that are being held, that are shown in these pictures and videos, are going to be taken into Israeli custody and probably held until the fighting all across the Gaza Strip is over. So there's an article published in the Washington Post yesterday titled, "U.S. Officials Privately Raise Fears of Israel-Gaza Conflict Sparking a Broader War." Now, this is something where in the immediate aftermath of the October 7th attacks, it was the top of headlines, right? It was a major concern that something could lead to an escalation with Iran or other groups in the region. That kind of died off for a while, but according to this article, it's really kind of spiked in the last couple weeks even. So according to Rhonda Slim, a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute think tank, she's quoted in the article saying, quote, "This last week, the level of concern in D.C. about a potential war on the Israel-Lebanon front has gone up 3 to 4 notches," end quote. The article says that despite repeated calls for Israeli restraint from senior figures in the Biden administration, U.S. intelligence assesses the Israeli Defense Forces are committed to business as usual, with only limited concern about civilian casualties, a U.S. official said, and there are suspicions the renewed campaign is actually bloodier than the previous offensive in northern Gaza. Renewed campaign as in after the ceasefire expired about a week ago. This is something I've spoken to a little bit in the past. One of the concerns when it comes to escalation is how do populations around the world view what's happening to the Palestinian people, and how long will general public of certain countries stand by before they start pressing their government to act and to try to do something to stop what Israel is carrying out in Gaza. And the bloodier the fight becomes, the more civilian casualties we see from Gaza, you have to think that those calls become louder and louder. The article continues saying, quote, "There is a will on the Israeli side to take advantage of the current rise in tensions to change the realities on the ground, to push Hezbollah far from the Israeli border," end quote. That's according to a European diplomat, adding that he sees comments by Israeli officials and some of their supporters as encouraging a wider blow-up that could have huge consequences. And this is something we talked about yesterday somewhat. Defense Minister Gallant went up north, met with some of the mayors of the evacuated towns in northern Israel, saying they're not going to go back until Hezbollah has been moved back to borders north of a river that was established by the UN following the 2006 war. They're nowhere near doing that right now. Hezbollah is right down on the border, actively firing into Israel on a daily basis. So if you according to this European diplomat, kind of reading between the lines, they suggest that the groundwork is kind of being laid for a possible Israeli operation to the north. And then kind of wrapping up here, talking about some of these other actors involved that could escalate this thing. They say Yemen's Houthis are a wild card, given that they gained serious influence only a decade ago. They are little understood by most governments and have few links with international players who often try to prevent instability. And then quoting Farah al-Muslimi, a research fellow at the Chatham House think tank, she said, quote, "Everyone continues to underestimate the recklessness of the Houthis," end quote. All right, so speaking of the Houthis, they dropped a music video. Who didn't see that coming? So there's a lot of questions about what are the Houthis going to do with this cargo ship that they captured a couple weeks ago. And it turns out they've been running like tours on it, people taking videos of touring the vessel parked off the coast of Yemen. And now they're using it as a prop in a music video. So kind of highlighting that they've still got this thing, showing this off to the world. So this music video is titled Axis of Jihad. And you see some key figures highlighting here. You got Qasem Soleimani showing up, some footage of him, the commander of the Iranian IRGC Quds Force. You've got Abu Mahdi al-Muhandis. There you go. He was the commander of the Iraq Popular Mobilization Forces, who was killed in the same airstrike as Soleimani a couple years ago. And then I think we're going to see Salah al-Samad at some point in here, or maybe it's just his cutout in the background. He's kind of one of the guy on the right there. He's kind of one of the founding members of the Houthi movement, if you will. Interesting to see some of the flags in the background here. They had the Lebanese flag, not the Hezbollah flag. At this point, I think they show the Hezbollah flag here a little bit later. Two different entities there, right? Lebanon is the country, Hezbollah is the movement controlling the southern portion of the country, considered, I guess, by the Houthis, one of the axis of jihad. Houthis do a decent job in this clip, kind of showing off some of their military capabilities. I think it's their production quality and some of this stuff is. There we go. There's some Hezbollah and Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah. Houthis have done an impressive job of kind of upping their propaganda game recently. The quality of their productions, things like that. It's quite a bit better now than it was just a few years ago. Probably have to cut a little bit of this out, the video out, just so it doesn't get taken down off any platform. Most of it can stay. But yeah, the Houthis highlighting some of their military capabilities here. It's a sizable force. It's a serious force. It's surprising. We got an Israeli vehicle getting hit in Gaza. I'm still surprised that there hasn't been a more significant response against the Houthis for their actions as of late. All things considered, whether it's the Houthis or any other Iranian-backed militia, there's a Hamas parade in Iraq and Syria attacking U.S. forces or attacking Israel at times. There's been relatively few responses. Things like north of 70 attacks against U.S. forces in the region, maybe over 80 at this point. There's been like 3 retaliatory strikes. If you're the Houthis, like, why stop, right? All right, so that's new. You don't see that every day, right? Thought it was worth showing. Don't often see a jihadi music video with cardboard cutouts of some of their senior leaders atop a captured cargo vessel off the coast of Yemen. So, something new for everybody. But that's all I got for now. Of course, if interested in national security subjects, be sure to check out the sit reps I put out on Substack. Link is in the description below. Substack now also has ad-free, sponsor-free videos that go live about an hour before they're published to YouTube. But thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.